Good evening, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed my new opening graphic. I think it's awesome. I'm so excited to use it. And starting tomorrow, I think we're going to try to be adding some music, which is going to be even more fun. So I am really having fun with this over here. And I hope you guys are enjoying it too. I have some good news to open us with before we really get into the show. I'm trying to do some small blurb before we get going to kind of open it up. Tonight we have news that Damar Hamlin is recovered enough to be going home. So he's able to fly, which is awesome. And he's stable enough to be looking like he's making a full recovery. So I'm really happy to hear that. We still don't know what happened with him, but whatever happened, he's making a full recovery and hopefully it never happens again. I get so disgusted with people who are instantly experts whenever something happens. If there's breaking news about a law, everyone's a legal expert. If there's a court case, same thing, everyone's a lawyer. If there's an injury, everyone assumes that they know what's happening there. There was a case of a young lady who was part of a news team, and she was giving a report, and in the middle of it, she stops and she blinks and she says, "I'm sorry, I'm not feeling very well." And then she appears to kind of falter. It's kind of terrifying. She didn't say what happened there. We have no way of knowing. I'm glad she's okay. She appears to be all right. She made her Twitter private. I don't blame her. That's just too bad. And the difficulty is that we know that so many of these places were requiring the vaccine. So it's very hard to look at this and say, well, it's not actually that. We just don't know. So I'm going to try to avoid drawing conclusions until I have sufficient evidence. Hopefully you guys will join me in that practice. I think that's the best course of action. I think it's always better to wait and see what truth comes out, because more time usually equals more truth. At least that's what we found with a lot of the COVID stuff, as we're seeing all the censorship that was on Twitter and whatnot. Speaking of Twitter, I'm very excited to talk about Elon Musk this evening. Let's see what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're talking about Elon Musk, talking about Russiagate. We're going to be talking about the leaked Social Security numbers that the January 6th committee leaked to the public of some of the highest profile visitors to the Trump White House. Kristi Noem is going after the committee. She says that her Social Security number, her husband's, her 3 children, and her son-in-law all had their Social Security numbers leaked, which is absolutely insane. When Andy told me about this, I actually couldn't believe it, because I was like, there's no way. They've got to be more professional than that. That just sounds like there's going to be in huge trouble if that is what happened. And he's like, oh no, that's what really happened. And then later I saw that it really was true. And I was just like, mind blown. So we're going to read about that, and we're probably going to be keeping up on it as we go along. We're going to talk about how DC is a ripe target for Republicans in the House. Capitol's delegate in Congress is warning the Democrat-led city is in danger of losing funds, and the GOP could go after abortion clinics. Oh no, terrifying. And unfortunately, we have a story about Virginia parents who are upset that schools appear to be holding merit awards, delaying them in political fashion, in what appears to be a quest for equity. And then we got some good news. We got courts upholding sex-based distinctions in school sports and restrooms, and Idaho upholding its near total abortion ban. I, of course, think that's a good thing. You guys may disagree. If you're just now joining, we just went over our good news about Damar Hamlin being able to go home. Yay! We are going to be talking about a few different things. Most importantly, the Social Security numbers the January 6th committee leaked. I wanted to talk about the context added on Paul Ehrlich's tweet. It is savage. Usually I don't show murders on my channel, but we're going to make an exception tonight. And then we're going to talk about artificial intelligence predicting rearrests and reoffense. And we're going to look at, we might look at Scientific American talking about how Black men are facing violence in football, unlike white men. And yeah, I think that's it. That's all we got for tonight. So we can really just get going. I know you guys love talking about Elon Musk. I am enjoying Twitter much more with him on it. So let's see what he's got. Elon Musk agrees Russiagate is among the most deranged and unhinged conspiracy theories spread by mainstream media. And that's really saying something. They have a track record of spreading the craziest conspiracy theories. Musk endorsed Glenn Greenwald's tweet saying Russiagate as a product of think tank frauds. Glenn Greenwald is very down to earth, and I consider him a very smart man. I'm sure he has a lot to say about what's been going on in Brazil. The American press was having a field day saying that the fact that Bolsonaro's, the Trump of the tropics, Bolsonaro's supporters were storming some of their government buildings, since they have nothing else to compare anything in the whole wide world to, other than January 6th. That's what they were saying it was like, when really it has almost nothing in common with that. But I don't make a habit of commenting on other countries' current events because I don't live there. I can barely comment on our own because I'm steeped in it 24/7. Certainly not in a position of authority in Brazil. So you guys should consult Glenn. I always do that. Glenn Greenwald for more authoritative information about Brazil. But let's get into this story about Elon Musk. Twitter owner Elon Musk agreed with journalists' claim Monday that Russiagate, the derogatory term for the theory and sprawling investigation into whether Donald Trump and Russia colluded to fix the 2016 election, was one of the most deranged and unhinged conspiracy theories in modern times. Glenn Greenwald, a journalist and co-founder of The Intercept, was reacting to an analysis in the Washington Post headlined "Russian Trolls on Twitter Had Little Influence in 2016 Voters," written by Tim Starks. He has the laughing, crying emoji saying, "You don't say." Russiagate was and is one of the most deranged and unhinged conspiracy theories in modern times. It wasn't spread by QAnon or 4chan users, but the vast majority of media corporations, scholars, think tank frauds, and NYT/NBC's disinformation units. This is from Craig Newmark, the Cybersecurity 202. Russian trolls on Twitter had little influence on 2016 voters. Of course they did. We've known this. We've known that they had very little reach and very little impact. They really were not what the mainstream media was saying they were. They were saying they had this dossier. They were saying they had this incriminating, scandalous tape of Donald Trump and some hookers. It was really like bawdy stuff that everyone who was scrutinizing it with even the slightest modicum of skepticism would have been like, wait, what? That's wild. Greenwald said Russiagate was pushed by the vast majority of media corporations, scholars, think tanks, frauds, and NYT NBC's disinformation units. Musk responded to Greenwald's tweet and said, "True." Can't believe they're writing a whole article about this, but it bears conversation. The Washington Post report focused on a study which found Russian influence in the 2016 election reached very few users on Twitter, and any who were reached were likely to be partisan Republicans inclined to oppose Hillary Clinton. Justin Tucker, an author on the report, told Starks that the story got way overhyped. Wow, again, you don't say. Now we're looking back at data, and we can see how concentrated this was in one small portion of the population, and how the fact that people who were being exposed to these were really, really likely to vote for Trump. And then we have this data to show we can't find any relationship between being exposed to these tweets and people's change in attitudes. Of course not. Twitter is like the worst place to try to convince someone of a position that they didn't already hold. It's a field full of partisan flowers. It's really delightful. It's not exactly ripe for convincing people. Major media outlets consistently pushed the narrative that Trump colluded with Russia to steal the 2016 election throughout his presidency. The Robert Mueller investigation dominated much of his first term and was the subject of near endless hype from liberal media outlets. Let's see here. The Washington Post corrected reporting that relied on the discredited Christopher Steele dossier that formed the underpinning for some of the Russiagate theories in 2021. And that includes the scandalous hooker tape that no one really wants to talk about anymore. It's embarrassing, as it should have been. It was this whole time, but they weren't as embarrassed as they should have been because they have no shame. The Washington Post on Friday took the unusual step of correcting and removing large portions of two articles published in March 2017 and February 2019 that had identified a Belarusian American businessman as a key source of the Steele dossier, a collection of largely unverified reports that claimed the Russian government had compromising information about then-candidate Donald Trump. Post media reporter Paul Farhi wrote at the time. Truly incredible. I wonder if they're going to face any kind of accountability for this level of lying. Executive editor of the Post, Sally Busby, defended the reporters who co-authored the corrected stories as being completely ethical. Okay, letter of the law. Maybe they were by your standards, but they weren't as far as pursuing the truth. What happened in this case was that the reporters involved, the minute that this indictment came out, pretty much came to us immediately. I think we all kind of probably reached a conclusion at the same point, and we decided that we needed to do further reporting. The reporters were completely ethical. They came forward. They said, hey, this indictment came down. We need to go back and look at that story, Busby said during a podcast appearance in 2021. Well, good for them, as soon as they realized that they might have made a mistake. But see, they could have avoided all of this by having the slightest amount of skepticism about what was being said. If our media weren't full of nothing but partisan hacks, this would never have happened. If you had one person in there who interrogated their own opinions, this never would have happened. This could have all been avoided. And I have to say, this should encourage them to take a moment to self-reflect, but I don't think it will. You guys let me know if you think it will. Let's look at this next one. Also, huge scandal. Noem family, this is from Yahoo News, had social security numbers leaked in relation to the House January 6th investigation. You mean the J6 committee leaked them? Oh, cool. Let's read. Governor Kristi Noem is demanding answers after she and members of her family had their social security numbers publicly released in a document cache related to the House Select Committee's investigation of the January 6th insurrection. In a letter released Friday evening by Noem's lawyers and addressed to Rep. Benny Thompson, Democrat, the chair of the Select Committee and the White House General Counsel, the second-term governor condemned the security breach. Governor Noem and her family are now at a very high risk of identity theft and being personally compromised due to failure to redact the social security numbers and making the same available to the public, the letter stated. The release of the breach was reported earlier Friday in the Washington Post. Nearly 2,000 unredacted social security numbers were inadvertently released, including Noem, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, and South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster. Noem said she and her husband, 2 daughters, son, and son-in-law had visited the White House and met with former President Donald Trump in December 2020 in her capacity as governor. During that visit, their personal information was recorded on visitor logs. That makes sense. The logs then became exhibits for the January 6th House Select Committee. Okay, so this is starting to read like what we're going to view as the Russiagate hoax in 2 to 4 years. I really think that's what's going to happen. We're going to be looking back on the January 6th committee with the same level of disgust, shock, and horror as those of us are now looking back on the Russiagate thing. But that's just my note. Noem said, yep, okay, the logs then became exhibits. These logs, along with taped interviews, audio recordings, and text messages, were posted online in the past few weeks as the committee finished up their work, according to the Washington Post. The unredacted social security numbers were posted sometime this week and buried in a spreadsheet several hundred rows down, according to the Washington Post. The sheets containing the information were then taken down Wednesday. Oh, it's far too late by that point to make any difference. Ian Fury, Governor Noem's communications director, told the Washington Post the governor and her family were not notified about the security breach. Oh, of course they weren't. Classy. Noem's lawyers wrote in a letter in the breach was a direct violation of the Privacy Act of 1974. Of course it was. This is unbelievable to me. I honestly can't believe this. I would be upset if this happened to any American. Do you guys remember when Adam Schiff was trying to release the phone records of John Solomon? Really, truly, really reprehensible. There is no moral grounding for these people anymore. There is only power and only politics, and I find that rather frightening. That's kind of disgusting. We expect a detailed response addressing how the breach of privacy occurred, who was responsible, what steps I'm assuming that means each of you has taken to remedy the breach, and what specific measures and remedies will be taken to protect Governor Noem and her family. I was thinking about this, and I think this would be a great opportunity for something like LifeLock to step in and say, we're going to provide coverage for all you guys for free just to prove that we can. And then they would put their staff on high alert for these particular Social Security numbers. I'm worried that it might be a little too political, and then LifeLock staff who don't like the Noems or disagree with them politically would be unwilling to take the necessary steps to secure them. But that is terrifying to think that somebody could be so partisan as to think that it was fine that you could completely compromise someone's identity. I know that we have political differences in this country. I'm a huge fan of the idea of building bridges and trying to remedy some of this division. I would really like to be able to do that. I can't make peace with people who are releasing Social Security numbers of their opponents to the public. That's genuinely disgusting. That's morally reprehensible, and I don't know what should be done about it. But I do know, and we're going to look at this next, I do know that having the GOP in power in DC is going to make a difference going forward. I hope. In the past, they've been very milquetoast, and I've been very disappointed with them to the point that I really want a third party. But the GOP leadership this year has kind of started with a bang after the McCarthy incident. So I'm kind of hoping that we can make this happen. I won't be holding my breath, but I do think that there will be some form of repercussions, even though I know we have a Biden administration and it's unlikely that we'll actually see any kind of real punishment for these people. But it's worth a shot, and I'm gonna allow myself to get my hopes up a little bit because I think that's really important. We need to keep the hope, we need to keep the faith, and this is necessary to solve this problem. All right, let's see what you guys think about this. All right, woohoo, showtime. Yeah, I'd rather watch Lid's blank screen than MSNBC. Hey, me too. LOL. Politically based karate. Hiya, I don't know what that is. There is no fear in this live stream. The Karate Kidder. I love it. Kevin San, I agree. Yes, I wear many hats, Lids. Ayo, I'm early. I'm happy you were early. I'm glad we got to start 5 minutes early, and I'm glad we got 5 minutes of that cool image. That was so fun. Let me switch over to, let's see if I push the right button here. There we go. So I'm going to read you guys' comments. Somebody says the J6 committee should be sued into oblivion. Yeah, 2,000 Social Security numbers, including the Social Security numbers of governors. That's a huge class action lawsuit waiting to happen. Changed my mind. Ads are appearing here. Geo-targeted Consumers Energy and Kia for ad number 2. So far, so good. Oh, I'm glad you're getting ads. I don't put them in on purpose. That's YouTube's doing. Where do you expect morality to come from in a society without God? Its origin. That's kind of hard to tell. I've been saying for a long time that we need some kind of religion. It's very difficult to have an objective source of moral truth without religion. So some kind of focus on faith is really necessary to bring this ship around. Glad to be here today. I usually have to work. I'm glad you are here too. Happy times. All right, we're going to move on to hopefully GOP success in DC. So let's see what they're so worried about. Exclusive. DC is a ripe target for Republicans in the House. Capitol's delegate in Congress warns Democrat city is in danger of losing funds and GOP could go after abortion clinics. Oh no. That sounds terrible. Republican hardliners expected to attack Washington, D.C. Oh no. That sounds like a war. That sounds like enemy combatants. What a horrible thing. They will target legislation of marijuana, abortion clinics, and ability to self-govern. Really? You really think a targeting of the ability to self-govern is coming from the right? Because I don't. The district is a ripe target, D.C. Delegate Eleanor Norton Holmes told DailyMail.com. We are in great danger with Republicans in charge. Republicans' jobs made easier and deal cut with Kevin McCarthy. So one of the things that happened with the McCarthy deal was that he made a lot of compromises, including some apparently making it easier to get rid of the House Speaker or oust them. Republican hardliners in the House could aim their fire at Washington, D.C., going after the city's legalization of marijuana, its abortion clinics, and its ability to self-govern. Oh, I see. The Democratic-led capital city has long been a GOP target due to its high crime rate and past financial corruption, and now their job may have gotten easier under a deal conservatives cut with Kevin McCarthy in exchange for their support of his bid to become House Speaker. D.C. Delegate Eleanor Norton Holmes said that Republicans' rule in the House marks a very dangerous time for the District of Columbia. A district is a ripe target, yeah, this we know. All right, so here we go. The depressing city of Washington, D.C. The GOP deal includes a promise for standalone votes on each of the 12 appropriation bills that fund the government. The bills would be considered under an open rule, which allows amendments from any lawmakers. I like that. More speech is better. District of Columbia is the only city in America under the jurisdiction of Congress as called for in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Under McCarthy's deal, a lawmaker theoretically could reach an amendment known as a rider to any budget bill that would target the district. Good. Such a move would hurt the bill's passage because many Democrats wouldn't support it. But if the budget bills aren't passed, the federal government shuts down. That could leave Democrats between a rock and a hard place of having to weigh a government shutdown against Republicans trying to roll back abortion access or criminalizing marijuana. Good. Anything that puts Democrats between a rock and a hard place is good by my standards. Even with Democrats in control of the Senate and President Joe Biden able to wield the veto pen, the question remains over what the party would do when it comes to preventing a shutdown, particularly on an issue that only affects Deep Blue DC. Past strategies on budget bills that have passed include ones that ban DC from using local funds to subsidize abortions for low-income women and blocked marijuana sales, making pot legal in the city to possess but not sell. Biden signed budgets that included both of those measures. Washington, D.C., like many cities, saw a spike in crime during the COVID pandemic. Metropolitan Police data shows the district saw a 29% spike in violent crime last year. And carjackings, oh my gosh, they're bad in D.C. Carjackings in the district soared from 142 in 2019 to 426 in 2021. That's like a fourfold increase. Additionally, lawmakers have noticed the increase in homeless people sleeping around the Capitol area. So this is something that directly affects the people who work at the U.S. Capitol. Conservative Republicans have been threatening to target Washington, D.C. because of the high rates of crime and homelessness, along with issues tied to retaining police force. Republican Rep. Andrew Clyde of Georgia has been a top critic of the management of the District of Columbia. He's threatened to go after D.C.'s home rule. The 1973 District of Columbia Home Rule Act created D.C. government as it's known today, giving it a mayor and a city council. However, that's only limited control. Any bill passed by the council must still be approved by Congress. Holmes Norton, who represents D.C. in Congress but doesn't have voting rights because of its lack of a statehood, said the threat to repeal the city's home rule is a shot across the bow of what we can expect. Good. She said Republicans will find anything they can overturn that Democrats have supported in the district as a ripe target. Good. This is exactly what they did with Trump's legacy. So I'm going to have to be on my guard. She vowed to work with Senate Democrats and Biden to do what she can to protect the city and expressed her hope that taking away the little autonomy that DC has would be too much for her party to tolerate. Republican Rep. James Comer, the incoming chairman of the House Oversight Committee, which oversees D.C., has vowed to address the increase in homelessness and violent crime in Washington. Simply put, D.C. is in a crisis because of Democrats' reckless policies, he told the Daily Caller earlier this year, and that's difficult to contest based on the current state of big blue cities. Lots of cities are blue cities, and lots of crime happens in cities. And it's difficult to tell if it's worsened by the Democratic policies or if it's just a factor of living in a big city with this level of lawlessness. I would personally chalk it up at least partly to their policies. I don't think they make it harder for criminals to get by. I do think that they make it simpler for people to get out of jail free with their cashless bail, I think it's called. Neither Clyde nor Comer's office responded to DailyMail.com's request for comment on what their future plans are for the district. I wouldn't either. I would keep them guessing. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser also understands her city will become a GOP target. She conceded in a press conference on the city's future on Monday that she and her team will have to be very focused on protecting our democracy and home rule. Sadly, we'll probably have to do that. Last week, Holmes Norton again introduced legislation that would give D.C. statehood. The bill passed in the House twice when Democrats were in charge, but always failed in the Senate, where it would need at least 60 votes to proceed in the legislative process. I hope it fails again and again. Many Republicans oppose the measure because it would boost Democrats with the left likely winning elections to represent the area in the House and Senate. In the district, which is home to around 713,000 people, Democrats outregister Republicans by 77% to 5%. Absolutely not. You don't get statehood. For years on end, the left has continuously demanded DC statehood, a politically motivated and wholly unconstitutional proposal that would radically revolutionize the balance of power in Congress to consolidate Democrats' control over Americans' lives. Clyde told Daily Mail earlier this year. Oh, the Daily Caller, sorry. But ironically, Holmes Norton notes, the Republican actions against the district could help her cause. I'm going to use every single instance to show why the district should have statehood, she said. All right, well, you can wish her luck. I don't think she's going to succeed. Hopefully, Republicans will take the hard line against DC statehood, and they'll use their firsthand experience with the homelessness around the Capitol to push actual reforms and keep Democrats from getting this ridiculous power over DC. Oh my gosh. You guys, I can't handle. You know how Harry and Meghan say that they always want privacy? That's all they want. All they want, they say on Oprah. All they want, they say in all these various different interviews. All they want, they say in his autobiography, is privacy. That's all they want. Harry is going on a tear. He is losing it. And we fought a war so that we wouldn't have to care about these people, but here we are treating them like celebrities. They're not celebrities. They're royalties of another country, and I don't care about them. From what I can tell, Harry is just a ridiculous excuse for a man. I don't believe he's worth a second of our time, but he's getting these relentless interviews, and I personally am sick of it. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Idaho is, in fact, based. Well, it would have been a cake if you hadn't ruined it, said Bill Burr. Yeah, so Bill Burr has a bit about abortion, talking about how when you put a cake into the oven, you put it in as a cake and it comes out as a cake. Well, you put it in as cake batter and it comes out as cake. And then people always say, well, it's not really cake, it's just batter. And he says, it's in the oven. It would have been a cake if you hadn't just ruined it, which I think is a very valid point. And then Andrew Schultz talks about why it's a woman's choice, because when he gets to stand in front of God, he wants to be able to say, I had nothing to do with that, which that's a really insightful comic bit. I like it. I'm really late, but that new graphic is amazing. Happy to see that. Woo! 2 wars and several undeclared wars. What's the difference between a government think tank and 4chan? Your money. That's a fair analysis. I appreciate that. All right, now we're going to get into more from the Beltway, which is always exciting and not at all horrible. Virginia parents outraged after another high school accused of delaying merit awards. Nakedly political. Here is Azra Nomani, who we had on Timcast IRL. Really appreciated her input. She's doing really good work over there. She focused on the educational stuff. She's an immigrant who is very, very focused on achievement, scholarship. She's a great mom. She really takes every step possible to make sure that her kids can really get ahead. Virginia parents are outraged after another distinguished high school was accused of withholding merit awards to advance the district's policy of pushing equal outcomes for all students. So this is in the name of equity. Love it. Fairfax County mothers Carrie Lucas and Azra Nomani, joined Fox and Friends First Monday to discuss how the equity policy has affected merit scholars and how parents in the district are fighting back. We now have 2 high schools in the same school district, in a school district that has just been nakedly political, focused on things that are not about advancing our kids' interests, but about this idea of equal outcomes for everyone, Lucas told co-host Ashley Strohmeyer. But what does that mean for merit scholars? What does that mean for these kids? It means that the school doesn't want them to succeed, or certainly the superintendent and Fairfax County Public School Board doesn't, she continued. They want them all to be equal. That means they don't want a top 3%. Lucas, who is the mother of a student at Langley High School in McLean, called out the school for its delay in notifying students of their awards. She accused the district of having different priorities than the parents and demanded transparency on the issue. Yeah, here's Azra. She says, let kids thrive and stop the sabotage. Good for her. She she takes every platform to make her message heard. She's got something behind her here, too, that I can't read. Langley is the second high school in recent weeks to come under fire for allegedly withholding notifications of merit awards, all in the name of equity. Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Alexandria faces similar allegations, supposedly withheld the academic awards to promote, quote, equal outcomes for every student without exception policy. Yeah, screw meritocracy, right? The delayed awards in question are given by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation, which recognizes top-performing high schoolers nationwide. TJ received the 2022 honors in October, but did not distribute them to students until a month later, after college application deadlines had passed, according to Nomani. Nomani's son, a 2021 TJ graduate, was honored as a commended student in September 2020, but was never notified, she wrote in City Journal. No matter what they throw at us, we're going to stand up and speak up, Nomani said. I want to just show people that this is one little certificate. This is as simple as it takes to get to parents, and this is my son's package, his student record. Every student has this in America, and there are laws that require that all our academic records for our kids be put in those. She's got a point. She knows what she's talking about. But 2 years later, I discovered that my son was a commended student because the school system had hid that information from us, she continued. No parent should be afraid to stand up. We have to all stand up, and we are doing it whether they call us mama bots. We are here to stay. The principal of Langley High School, Kimberly Greer, admitted to the delay in an email she sent to parents after the allegations surfaced. I am delighted to let you know that your student was designated as committed a student by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation. I must apologize. Certificates were not distributed to these students in the usual way this past fall. I am deeply sorry for this mistake. But many parents feel the apology is just not enough, and I would hazard it's not a mistake at all. I think it was very intentional. This is such a tragedy, not just on a national scale in terms of this war on merit that's happening, but in the personal lives of kids. They're waiting right now for answers from colleges, and there was this critical data point that was missing, which is this amazing honor being in the top 3% of kids nationwide, said Nomani. Last week, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin asked Attorney General Jason Miyares to investigate the allegations against TJ High School as parents remain up in arms about the controversy. Fairfax County Public Schools released a statement after Youngkin's request and said it had facilitated its own investigation in the matter. Yes, we've investigated ourselves and found we did nothing wrong. Our preliminary understanding is that the delay this fall was a unique situation due to human error. The investigation will continue to examine our records in further detail, and we will share key findings with our community. I don't believe them. The people who made this mistake, that I don't believe was a mistake, I truly do believe that it was fully in favor of so-called equity, are unlikely to be willing to tell the truth unless their feet are truly held to the fire, as they should be. And I think that Azra Nomani is really a burr in their side because she is never going to go away. She's never going to stop fighting. When you come between a mom and her kids, and when it comes to their education and how her kids can do in life, that is dangerous territory. And the fact of the matter is, this particular topic is literally only going to affect the top 3% of students in the country. Her son was among that top 3%, which good for him. They're very committed to education. It's not going to affect everyone, but what we've been seeing happen over the last couple of years is that the Democrats seem committed to turning parents into a voting bloc. And I've been saying that that's a dangerous game to play because it is. You don't want to put all parents on the side of one political party. That's a very dangerous game to play as far as voting goes. And you know that these parents are going to vote according to what their kids need, because their kids are one of the most important things in their lives. At least they should be. These parents are good parents. Good parents recognize that their kids need their defense. When something like this comes up, every good parent in their right mind is going to be up in arms, because why wouldn't you be? Your child deserves your support. They deserve your discipline. They deserve your structure. They deserve your constant communication, and they deserve to succeed if they're able to. And that's exactly what Azra Nomani is doing. So more power to her. I am so impressed by what they're doing over there. I think it's great, and I hope they never give up. All right, let's see what you guys think. Bill Murphy, stripes to mud wrestling. If you're so filthy, then you make your opponent just as dirty so no one knows who actually wins. That's correct. In Top Gun Maverick, Goose's son should have been named Chicken to stick with the trend of his father. Goose would have been called Gander for it to match. Good work, everyone. I appreciate this commentary. Top Gun, Duck Duck Goose. Good times, guys. Thank you. Andy is on a meeting right now. Otherwise, he would be in the chat, I'm sure, setting all of you guys straight. Time for us to hop to our next story. I find this so exciting. We have a couple different positive things. Courts uphold sex-based distinctions in school sports and restrooms, dealing setback to ACLU. So do you guys remember when the ACLU was on the side of American civil liberties? Yeah, neither do I. Pretty much the whole time I've been alive, they've been actively working against conservatives. And that only ramped up after Trump because a lot more donations came in under Trump because people really wanted to see him defeated. They thought that the ACLU would help do that. And so they began to butter their bread on the side of hating Republicans and working for Democrats. And they have continued to do that because probably they're just afraid of losing their donors. This is my theory. I don't know if that's the case, but I do know that they were working against Trump actively, and which put them in a very partisan position and attracted a lot of partisan donors. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, but let's see what they've been working on. Judge says West Virginia's Save Women's Sports law is not driven by animus and reflects biological athletic advantages of males. Of course it's not. There's no reason to believe that these transgender sports laws are in any way driven by hatred. In fact, that's entirely the rhetoric from the left, because I know a lot of people on the right wing, and most of the people here don't like the activists, have a serious issue with them, think that they are immoral, unethical, etc., partly because they're lying to children about gender transition, partly because they're trying to make money off gender transitions, especially for children. It's a huge problem. And partly because they appear to be attempting to dismantle the nuclear family in a way that's absolutely unacceptable. So let's read what's going on here. Advocates for school policies based on gender identity face 2 legal setbacks in a week, with federal appeals and trial courts rejecting ACLU challenges to sex-based restrooms and sports competition policies in 2 states. That's awesome. Days after the full 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a Florida high school's requirement that the students use a restroom for their sex, calling it an immutable characteristic. Good for them. Under Title IX, U.S. District Judge Joseph Goodwin upheld West Virginia's Save Women's Sports laws. While some females may be able to outperform some males, it is generally accepted that, on average, males outperform females athletically because of inherent physical differences between the sexes. Can you imagine that we now live in a time where this is a controversial thing to say? It is absolutely baffling to me. It's really interesting. I'll just say this before I move on. It's really interesting to me that radical feminists are on the side of calling transgender women because what's actually happening there is that now women are in a position where they are actually losing to men. And at the end of the day, the whole fighting patriarchy thing appears to be just a sham when you are agreeing with them that trans women are women. And you're setting biological women in every sense of the word, up for failure for the sake of being inclusive and diverse. Now, as far as equity goes, I don't think it's in any way fair to say that men should be able to compete against women, because if we're going based on what Virginia was trying to do, you're not going to be able to create an equal outcome for everybody. And I know that's the opposite of what you want to do in sports. We're seeing such nonsense in this area. The fact is that if you are trying to be equitable, you're going to keep males out of female sports, because females should be competing against other females, just like males should be competing against other males. And I've heard of more than one instance where a subpar male athlete like Leah Thomas transitions to become a woman and becomes top of the ranks because they are simply biologically different. Taller, stronger, more lean muscle mass, quicker, fast twitch muscle reflex, all that good stuff. The transgender plaintiff acknowledged that circulating testosterone in males creates a biological difference in athletic performance, the opinion said. Goodwin cannot conclude the state's classification based on biological sex is not substantially related to its interest in providing equal athletic opportunities for females. The 11th Circuit and Goodwin's rulings are a reversal of fortunes for the ACLU, which recently convinced the Second Circuit to uphold Connecticut's transgender sports policy and blocked Idaho's pioneering Fairness in Women's Sports Act in trial court in 2020. The Ninth Circuit heard mootness arguments in May 2021 based on plaintiff Lindsay Hecock's uncertain return to Boise State University, remanding the transgender competitor's challenge to Idaho law, but now considering another appeal. The U.S. District Judge David Nye ruled last summer that this case was not moot due to Hecox's, I don't know how to pronounce that person's last name, spring 2022 return, participation in women's club soccer, and intention to try out for women's track and cross country. ACLU did not respond when asked for its response to the legal setbacks and next steps. State bills that would enshrine sex-based eligibility for girls' school sports, often titled Save Women's Sports or Fairness in Women's Sports, have a mixed record even in generally conservative states. South Dakota Republican Governor Kristi Noem vetoed such a bill in spring 2021, but quickly reversed herself amid blowback, signing a new bill a year later. This is why a lot of people, myself included, don't particularly care for Kristi Noem. She's nowhere near as effective a governor as Ron DeSantis or as poised to make actual change as Glenn Youngkin seems to be. She was squishy on the topic of women's sports, which is really interesting because from what we can tell, based on her social security letter, she has 2 daughters and she is herself a female. You would think this is something that she would take to heart, but no, what she did was sign it in the hopes of appeasing the wokesters, I guess. And then she backtracked because people didn't like what she did, which I just hate. If you're going to do it, and don't worry about the blowback. If you are concerned about the blowback, maybe you should think about that before you do it. Maybe you should know your own voter base. I thought she did. I thought she had more common sense to that, but apparently she does not. A bill offered last year by Wyoming Republican Senator Wendy Schuler, whose student's athletic career started before Title IX, passed the chamber but didn't even get introduced to the House, both dominated by Republicans. That's interesting. I wonder why not. Cowboy State Daily reported Wednesday that Schuler is bringing the bill back this year. Good. Shorn of its original application to college sports. She cites the inconsistency created by the Wyoming High School Activities Association policy that punts decisions to individual schools, but says they should consider students in a manner that is consistent with their gender identity. Yeah, you can't leave this to the individual schools. It's really not fair to these women, these female athletes, girls in this instance. The West Virginia legislation was provoked by the Connecticut policy, which enabled the dominance of 2 biologically male runners to girls' track. That's correct. And from my understanding, these male athletes ended up getting scholarships that should have gone to these 2 female athletes. Goodwin blocked the law when the ACLU sued on behalf of another would-be women's cross-country and track athlete, an 11-year-old who started taking blockers at the first signs of male puberty. Wow. The President Clinton appointee initially determined BPJ had a likelihood of success on the merits of her as-applied challenge. The judge accepted intervention from the Alliance Defending Freedom on behalf of former West Virginia State University soccer player Lainey Armistead in support of the law. ADF also intervened in favor of the Idaho law and sued to overturn the Connecticut competition policy on behalf of female cross-country and track athletes. Goodwin appears to have been swayed by the thousands of pages filed by the parties in this case, specifically citing Armistead despite controlling the Fourth Circuit precedent on a transgender restroom case now at odds with the 11th Circuit's ruling. Too many circuits. The judge speaks in the first person 23 times in 23 pages. Despite the politically charged nature of this transgender acceptance in our culture today, this case is not one where the court needs to accept or approve BPJ's existence as a transgender girl. Ultimately, BPJ's issue here is with the state's definition of girl and boy, which Goodwin deemed constitutionally permissible. Of course. Sex discrimination laws must be backed by exceedingly persuasive justification under Supreme Court precedent, a test met by West Virginia law, the opinion said. It cited Fourth Circuit precedent requiring that preference rests on evidence-informed analysis rather than on stereotypical generalizations. The preteen's unusual circumstances, starting blockers rather than taking cross-sex hormones to limit the advantage of male puberties, can't overcome the fact that a person either has male sex chromosomes or female sex chromosomes. Good for this judge. This is the only scientific basis through which we can view this transgender thing and whether males have an advantage over females. You have to look at the chromosomes. Nothing else makes sense. I recognize that being transgender is natural and not a choice, but one's sex is also natural, and it dictates physical characteristics that are relevant to athletics, regardless of whether some females may be able to outperform some males, said Goodwin. The Second Circuit found such exceptions persuasive. Gender transitioning may not start until after male puberty. Not all trans girls can get hormone therapy, quote, depending on her age and the state in which she lives. And the voluminous record shows much debate over whether and to what extent that therapy can reduce male athletic advantage. I think part of the problem here, too, is that we're not really sure how much we can reduce male competitive advantage. We have established, though, that I don't think that it's enough. Goodwin emphasized that the contradiction between BPJ's argument that low testosterone boys are not similarly situated with average girls under Title IX and the Equal Protection Clause, and the student's argument that availability of hormone therapies makes transgender girls similarly situated to cisgender girls. Irrelevant word, non-existent word. Cisgender doesn't mean anything. You have regular, the typical biological state of human beings, and then you have transgender. Transgender is, in fact, the outlier. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. I'm not intending to ostracize them, but we need to understand this is a special circumstance. And apparently that's what West Virginia found, which is great. Let's see. At the moment, they verbalize their transgender status. BPJ has equal athletic opportunity under Title IX, just not in the opposite sexes sports, the judge wrote. There is no serious debate that Title IX's endorsement of sex separation in sports refers to biological sex, and the court has no grounds to require the state to be more inclusive and adopt a different policy. The ruling had an important sleeper provision, deeming the West Virginia Secondary Schools Activities Commission a state actor subject to constitutional obligations. That's interesting. Counties have delegated their authority to supervise and control interscholastic athletic events to the commission. Principals sit on its Board of Controls, and the State Board of Education must approve its rules, making the commission pervasively entwined with the state, Goodman said. Oh, that makes sense. And while I have no doubt that the law aimed to politicize participation in school athletics for transgender students, Goodwin said, BPJ couldn't show legislative animus for transgender people beyond a bill co-sponsor who liked anti-transgender comments on his Facebook post. This is really something we're doing, by the way. We're really seriously considering things that people like on social media, which should be a warning, I guess. If you wish to avoid cancellation, your whole goal should be to do nothing, say nothing, be nothing. And I don't think that's going to fly, so we're just going to have to ignore it. I think we should talk about the case of the firing over the liked Twitter accounts that came up over the past week. George Washington University law professor John Bonzoff calls the ruling a victory for objective eligibility criteria. Would a 20-year-old be permitted to compete in the Senior Olympics based on his feelings or beliefs, even if he claims that many senior citizens can outperform some 20-year-olds, he wrote in a press release. That is an entirely fair comparison. I think that's a good take. And I'm excited that these two states have chosen to adhere to truth as far as female sports. I don't often talk about it because it's kind of a frustrating topic, and I don't think they're going to stop until they're forced to, but I don't know what the future holds. We'll just have to keep an eye on it and see what else happens. You missed the Blockbuster video group chat. Oh, I'm sorry that I missed that. Let's see. Oh, good. Andy's here. Yay. I hope his interview went well. Let's see here. I don't want an injection. I've already decided that I would like to be released using nitrogen. Interesting. The Giver is my favorite novel. There are other contenders, but that one will remain my favorite. Requesting release is an honorable and noble process. I'm assuming you mean taking the Canadian way out. Andy says, I'm back. What'd I miss? Oh, you missed everything. It's been so exciting. January 6th participation trophies from President Biden. I hear there were 14 of them. Y'all, what do you think of the new names I came up with for the show? Trad Queen Story Hour. So this is a fun idea that Annie introduced the other day. I think it was probably his crowning achievement, the greatest name he's ever come up with. I love the idea, Trad Queen Story Hour. So I'm really looking forward to. Your show is being shadow banned. It didn't show that you were live even when I went directly to your channel to look. It just randomly popped up 40 minutes into your stream, for me at least. Interesting. Lydia said she's doing her own calendar, but it's all cats. LOL, kidding. Yeah, it pretty much is. It's partly Andy shirtless, but it's also Dip. Let's be fair. And it will be the puppy as soon as we get the puppy. I think I told you guys that we're adopting Dot in a few weeks, 20 days exactly to be precise. I'm probably going to try to introduce her on the live stream, but we'll see what happens. She might be a little wild and crazy for a little while. All right. You will be happy and be nothing. Something like that. Check my Twitter for the show link every night, says Andy, at Andy Leiterman on Twitter. Leitermann. I had to correct that with the hospital who thought we were related to David Letterman. We are not. Totally different last name. Dip and Dot. Yes, that's correct. Dip and Dot. It's the greatest name series of all time. Trad Queen Story Hour it is. Andy shirtless, here for that, LMAO. Yeah, me too. I like that idea. He wants to get in better shape, so I'm looking forward to that too. I think he'll feel better about himself and he will really enjoy making a shirtless calendar, which apparently we're going to be giving to people who give us big super chats. From my understanding, $100 will earn you that. I don't recall exactly what the criteria are, but that's something we're going to be working on. All right, here's something that I'm excited about. There is good news. You just have to look for it. Idaho Supreme Court upholds state's near total abortion ban. The Idaho Supreme Court on Friday upheld the state's abortion ban, which restricts access to the procedure except in cases of rape, incest, or a threat to the life of the mother. The state had previously enacted a trigger law that would ban abortion upon any ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court that overturned the national constitutional right to abortion established in 1973's Roe v. Wade. The court did so in June of 2022, returning the right to regulate the procedures to the states in Dobbs v. Jackson. So Dobbs, if I recall correctly, was Mississippi's law that was something like this. It was a near total abortion ban that they hoped that it would be taken to the Supreme Court. They were successful, and the people behind that ruling have to be ecstatic that it worked the way they did. That ruling saw many trigger laws take effect, including Idaho's, though legal challenges have ensued and cast doubt upon the future of individual state bans. The South Carolina Supreme Court on Thursday determined that the state's ban on abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy violated the state's constitution under the right to privacy. This is the argument they keep raising. I don't believe that's a good, solid, or reasonable conclusion. Idaho's court declined to make a similar ruling, determining on Friday that the state's ban, as well as 2 other laws regulating abortion, were valid under state constitution. Under that form of review, each of these laws is constitutional because it is rationally related to the government's legitimate interest in protecting prenatal fetal rights, life at all stages of development, and in protecting the health and safety of the mother. We emphasize that we are deciding today is that the Idaho Constitution as it currently stands does not include a fundamental right to abortion. The ruling further doesn't create a constitutional ban on the procedure, but merely allows the state laws to take effect. They further noted that Idaho residents have amended the state constitution 135 times and contended that nothing about the decision prevents the voters of Idaho from answering the deeply moral and political question of abortion at the polls. Comparable cases in states that have banned abortion, such as Kentucky, remain pending. Interesting. So I'm going to see real quick if we can find a map of the states that have banned abortion so far. States that have banned abortion. Let's see. We're going to look at images. Okay. If the U.S. Supreme Court overturns or guts Roe v. Wade, 26 states are certain or likely to ban abortion. Let's see if we can find just this image. Yes, okay. This is from the Guttmacher Institute, who does the numbers for Roe v. Wade and who conveniently tells us that less than 1% of abortions are for incest and rape. If the U.S. Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, 26 states certain or likely to ban abortion. So here's Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North and South Dakota. I don't know what this state. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Illinois is not one of the states. Whatever this is, this looks like Michigan. This is hard. This is really challenging to try to name these states right off the top of my head. Looks like Utah and Nevada, not Arizona, not Colorado, not Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. This is a pop quiz, by the way, guys. Louisiana, Arkansas, these 2 other southern states, Florida, Georgia, and then this one. Why can't I remember its name? I want to say that's Tennessee or Kentucky. I can never keep them straight. And here we have West Virginia. And then I think, Tennessee, Kentucky. No, I had that backward. Yeah. This is Tennessee. Yeah, okay, it's Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee. We drove down there the other day, or a year ago. And we have all these states too. I think Idaho or Ohio is one of these states as well. Interesting. Okay, well, cool. I think that these 26 states, hopefully having these trigger laws will mean that abortion will be much less likely to occur, and there will once again come about a cultural pressure against premarital sex, unprotected sex for people who don't wish to become parents at the time, and put the onus back on the states to make sure that their people are engaging with culture in such a way that they understand that having this kind of wild and wanton lascivious sex is not a good idea, and that there might actually be consequences, and that responsibility needs to be in play. All right, so that was good news. Let's see. So when avian competitors need not apply, I'm not sure what Andy is talking about that. Andy's going to give the calendars away. He likes people looking at him. No, he doesn't. I don't think so. All right. Thank you for taking the Canadian way out. I shall spread it far and wide. Yeah, I don't want to say the S word on YouTube because I don't really want to run the risk of, oh my gosh, I almost just said it, of taking the Canadian way out for my monetization. But yeah, I think that whole situation is so sad and so unethical. I honestly can't believe we're facing that right now. But it's disheartening. I guess we had to have some bad news to bring us down. I am so excited about this context added for Paul Ehrlich. I tweeted about it. I said, yo, fire emojis. Context added hits a new best. More fire emojis than I have ever put into one tweet in my entire life. Let's look at this. Paul Ehrlich, I commented on this the other day, says 60 Minutes extinction story has brought the usual right wing out in force. I'm assuming he meant right-wing trolls. Let's read the context added. He says, if I'm always wrong, so is science, since my work is always peer-reviewed. Wink. Yeah, that just draws into question the peer review process, including the population bomb. And I've gotten virtually every scientific honor, also calling into question scientific honors. Let's be real. Sure, I've made some mistakes, but no basic ones. He has made every mistake in the book. He's been wrong about everything he ever predicted, and he helped facilitate China's one-child policy, and he lamented when that was overturned. Let's read the context added. Readers added context they thought people might want to know. Oh, this is so good. Paul Ehrlich's critics are not, quote, right-wing trolls, close quote. Critics of his errors have been from across the spectrum over 50 plus years. Oh my gosh, nuked from orbit. This is really lethal. I was just so amused to go back to his tweet and read this context added, and I was just so gorgeous. I hope you guys are enjoying it with me. I really enjoy Twitter under Elon Musk because we get this kind of thing. We never would have had anything like this under the previous leadership at Twitter. This is glorious, and I truly hope that more of this happens. I genuinely did not expect a context added for this one. There was one other thing. There was another journalist tweet talking about how Brian Sicknick was killed at the January 6th riot based on information that she got from the White House that I really, really wanted context added on. I need to go back and check if context was ever added to that one. It was just a flat out lie. It was literally just a lie. And every single comment under that tweet was telling her that she was misled. She defended herself by saying she got the information from the White House. And I was like, this makes it even worse. You are literally carrying water for a White House that is openly lying to the people. You are not a journalist. You are a hack. But I digress. I am so happy that this happened, and I'm just, I'm luxuriating in it. I'm having such a great time. And I hope that you guys will join me in this exaltation, because we got to take our wins where we can get them, and this one is good. All right, to wrap up, we're going to talk a little bit about AI, Real Life Minority Report. AI predicts arrest within 3 years of a prisoner being released on parole based on 91 variables like race and age. Do you guys think that AI is going to be able to predict if someone will reoffend? Because I do. I think that if you put in enough information about the type of people who are likely to reoffend, you are likely to come out with a better understanding of people who actually do. Do I think it should be applied in the justice system? Probably not. Certainly not yet. We don't actually want a minority report in real life. But let's read. Scientists trained the AI to analyze 91 variables to determine if an inmate is at high or low risk of rearrest after being released on parole. The variables include age, race, sentence, and previous arrests. The AI was tested on data from the New York State Parole Board from 2012 to 2015, a time when more than 19,000 inmates had parole hearings. More than 4,000 were released, but the AI found the parole board should have released nearly 50% more. Wow. It may sound like a plot from the 2002 movie Minority Report, but artificial intelligence can predict any arrest within 3 years of a prisoner being released on parole. The machine learning was designed to determine risk of releasing prisoners early by analyzing 91 variables, including age, race, and previous arrests. Scientists from the University of California, UC Davis, used the data of more than 19,000 inmates scheduled with the New York State Parole Board from 2012 to 2015. Court documents show 4,000 individuals were released, but the AI determined the board could have released double the inmates without increasing the subsequent arrest rate. That's surprisingly the opposite of Minority Report. These aren't people who are being screened for pre-crime. AI is saying that more people should have been released. That's an interesting question. Is this a gamble that we want to play with artificial intelligence when it comes to our society? Do we want more people to be in danger? I'm assuming that some of these people are violent offenders. The AI echoes the storyline of Minority Report, which starred Tom Cruise. The film, set in 2054, is about a specialized police department that apprehends criminals using foreknowledge provided by 3 psychics called precogs. The machine learning algorithm found the predicted risks for those denied parole and those released are very similar. This suggests that low-risk individuals who may have remained incarcerated while high-risk individuals were released, so humans got it exactly backwards. That's interesting. Hannah Lacour, an assistant professor at the Department of Emergency Medicine and lead author of the study, said in a statement, "We conservatively estimate the board could have more than doubled the release rate without increasing the total or violent felony arrest rate. And they could have achieved these gains while simultaneously eliminating racial disparities in release rates." A total of 19,000 individuals had parole hearings from 2012 through 2015. We already heard all this. Okay. Along with age and race, the AI also looked at specific offenses, such as those involving minors, drugs, hate crimes, and larceny. And the AI was fed information regarding arrest history. This included offenses that lead to the period of incarceration for which individuals are being considered for parole. While human parole staff have used statistical analysis for decades to determine if an inmate should be released, this technology is able to quickly look at every variable possible to know for sure. The AI determined that the number of inmates released on parole should have been nearly 50% more. That is very interesting. Yeah, here's a scene from Minority Report, which I am going to now have to rewatch. I thought that was a great movie. Oh, here's more interesting stuff about crime. So, AI detective Valkyrie solves crimes using deductions made from millions of pieces of data. AI can successfully identify the likelihood of domestic violence in 90% of cases. And AI that studies CCTV to predict violent crime before they happen will be rolled out in the UK. Ooh, I don't like that. See, that actually sounds like Minority Report more than this one that's recommending more people be released. Really interesting. Yeah, I don't like that. Okay, they're just comparing everything to Minority Report at this point. I don't like that. AI that studies CCTV to predict violent crimes before they happen will be rolled out in the UK. The UK is quickly becoming one of the most authoritarian surveillance states that I've seen in a long time. It's really kind of shocking that the West is becoming what it is. I also wanted to point this out. I saw it go by as I was scrolling. It's kind of interesting. A court hearing in February is set to have robot lawyer takes its first court case. Hearing next month will see the defendant get advice from an artificial intelligence using a smartphone app. I am so curious where this all leads. Now, in the case of the UK, you can see how it could turn somewhere bad. In the case of having like a robot lawyer, that's really interesting. And then we have AI counseling them to release more people than it had. AI predicting domestic violence 90% of the time, and solving crimes using deductions. That's really interesting too. So this is something that I actually hadn't considered, was the role of AI in criminology. So I'm really interested to see what happens with that. And I'll try to keep you guys updated on any more breaking AI crime stories. But we are at the end of our stream time here. So I want to thank you guys all for reading. And we're going to read a few more of your comments and then we'll head out. Oh, let's see. Andy says, but we also finally have access to our new studio space. We do, and we're looking forward to expanding. I still have a lot to do. We're doing like basic cleaning. We're moving stuff around to where we want it. We're getting all situated here, and we're bringing in the rest of our belongings to our living space. And I'm so excited with the progress we're making. We have really big, super ambitious plans that might need to be tempered a little bit, but we'll see what happens. And I'm excited for the future. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I have plans for bringing on my first guest. I already have one lined up, and we'll just look at the news together, most likely. And we're going to probably talk about the book that he wrote for sure. And I think, we're going to have new studio space before too long here. And I am excited for my new set. I still really want to keep these bookshelves behind me. I think they're nice. I like that the height is perfect with the Sour Patch Lids sign, and there's Dip in the At sign, and our wedding picture. I think that's really cool too, and I don't want to let that go. We'll see what Andy says. These are 90% his books. I think I might have to get him his own bookshelves to have in his office so that he can still have access to all his stuff. All right, so stay tuned, you guys, for really exciting stuff to happen. We're going to get music in that opener. I'm excited for that, so you can listen to that while you're waiting if you choose, and mute it if you don't want. But it is good music, and it's original music, and I have, we're going to be bringing in some of Andy's original music from one of his friends, and then I also want to bring in some original music from a guy that I have really been enjoying for the past few years. And I find his music really meaningful. It's not just music, it's music with a message. And it really is it's powerful stuff. And I think I've recommended it plenty of times. So we'll see if we're able to do that. Let's read more of your comments. The real question for Andy is, did the intern applicant interviewed get the job? That's a great question. The greatest trick AI ever pulled was convincing the world it didn't exist. That was the devil. Thank you, though. I got my info from the White House, and you trusted it? Yeah, she sure did. Because she's not a journalist. She is a hack. She's on the side of the White House. She's on the side of the Democrat Party. Excuse me. I think I swallow air when I talk. That's why I hiccup as I'm going along. I'm to read about how to prevent that from happening. The only other profession in which one can be wrong so often is weather reporting. Yeah, economists and meteorologists get a lot wrong, and they're never held accountable for the mistakes they make. So it's not right. Population bomb was unbelievably wrong in so many ways. Yeah, literally all of his predictions. He predicted that humanity would be basically extinct by 1970. He said in the 1980s there would be massive famines. We rehashed that a while ago, so I'm going to recommend you guys go back and check that out. If you haven't, definitely also go follow my Twitter if you don't already, and read me laughing at him being context checked. I love it so much. The button, like it for sure. Are your eggs on the inside or the outside of your body? That's what matters in sporting competitions. I think that's a good rule of thumb. However, they're doing surgeries and stuff like that. I don't know. All right. Let's see. Only chickens and turkeys want to show up anyway. Yeah, for sure. QM surpasses any appeal to classical mechanics. I don't know what that is. No. Oh, quantum mechanics, maybe? You are statistical from this measurement position. I'm not sure. Andy, my brain read that and thought giant water bottles from the 80s. Did any state do any real abortion bans? So Louisiana did for sure. Idaho did. I think the best we're probably going to get is not allowed except for cases of rape, incest, and health of the mother. I personally don't like the idea of abortion in the case of rape, or really in the case of incest, because it doesn't matter how a person comes about. I know people who are the product of rape and they're very glad they're alive and they make the world a better place, and it's not their fault what their dad did to their mother. In fact, it doesn't make a crime go away by committing another heinous act. It makes it worse, and it makes it harder on the mom. People sometimes never recover from abortions, and sometimes people never recover from rapes. But you can be sure that adding them together is not going to solve the problem. That's really all I have to say about that. I don't like the idea of considering that human life is precious except when it occurs in a way that you personally don't think is good. It doesn't matter how human life comes about. It matters that it exists and it deserves to be defended. The right to life is not something that we can walk away from and consider ourselves a valid human beings. Oh, someone super chatted. Didn't even see that. How cute. Thanks, Adrian. It's a little smiling face sticker. Sorry, can't read. How delightful. Thank you. Someone says sewer slide. No, I don't want to say that. I want to say Canadian way out. I like that. All right. Sorry about the all caps lock. Yeah, don't all caps lock me. I'm working on a new website. Soon that'll be the authoritative tub for all things Sour Patch Lids. Woo! It's already sort of. sourpatchlids.me. That's correct. Andy, authoritative? We don't do that here. Yeah, we do. He's pretty much the authority on me, honestly. Yeah, I'm so excited for our new studio space. Ask the boss lady. I don't like identity politics, meaning that Lid's solo office space can get built, and the one she's currently in will become my office/studio, and we'll have a big roundtable podcast discussion studio as well. I am so excited. That remains to be seen. No temper. Thanks, Adrian. I appreciate you. I'm glad that you're here. I think that great good can come from a great evil. That's correct. I actually had a tweet earlier today, which was rehashing an idea I'd had before. And that is the concept of suffering presenting us a fork in the road. And I will show you guys this tweet and then I'm going to close out. And it's entirely true. Suffering presents us all with a fork in the road. We may either use it to make ourselves advocates, serving others like Abby Johnson, who uses her experience to fight for life, or we may use our suffering to excuse our failures and vices. I did not name any names as an example of that, but I have seen that happen too. The choice is always ours. That's entirely correct. I have seen people who survived incredibly, insanely, horrifically abusive situations come out and make the world a better place in every conceivable way. And then I've seen people who faced slight inconveniences allow it to completely color their perceptions of the world for years on end, and who still contained, after all that time, so much vitriol and spite. It was genuinely disturbing. And I often feel really bad for people who let it control their lives, because I have seen such good come from suffering in people who have the right character to make good of it. So I will leave you all with that. Suffering does present us all with a fork in the road. I hope that you all today and every day will choose to make good use of it and become advocates, for example, for life or for other values that you hold dear, for freedom, for liberty, for justice, for honor, for all that good stuff. All right, you guys, I will see you all tomorrow. Same time, same place. We're going to have cool music tomorrow. Until next time,